Hi guys, this is a video to help you move on your inquiry research into the digital essay, which is the project that is going to celebrate what you learned and what you researched. There are some focal questions that hopefully you've already looked at when you guys went over this handout in class. So now what I'd like to do is talk about the 4 key content features of the digital essay, how I did my essay versus how you can do yours, and then I do want to come back to those 4 questions and make sure that they are fully answered for you for your workshop today. So looking at my digital essay, it does have the 4 components or content features that are on the handout that you've just read through. A couple disclaimers. My essay is a lot longer than I think most of your guys' essays are going to be. The reason why it is so long is because I did 2 pretty significant pieces of secondary research. I also had 3 to 4, no, I had 3 grand findings or conclusions after I did all my research, and I'm also trying to show you as much of the multimedia pull-ins as possible, or the digital essay features as possible in this example. So it's a little bit over and above what you guys are going to be doing, and it's because I'm trying to give you some samples. So don't feel like your essay has to be as long as this one. This is just kind of giving you a rundown of all the bells and whistles that took my research inquiry into the digital essay mode. So the first thing is, what is a digital essay? A digital essay is like it sounds. It's an essay that's meant to be digitally read. It is basically a project that's meant to be experienced on a screen as opposed to on a paper, pen, or typed model. And so some of you guys have asked about videos, which is awesome. Videos can be a great way to create digital essay, especially if you're using that to help celebrate your interviews. I personally prefer text or written essay formatting, which is why mine is so long, but you do not have to do it my way. So content 1 is a basic, all projects, whether it's an essay, whether it's a film, a TV show, they always have an introduction. So my introduction uses a story. It's a personal story. I wanted to use I statements, which is okay because it's a narrative piece. I did a personal question and I talk a little bit. And then the digital essay features, or the media pull-in, is this thing right here, which is a block quote, which is off of Weebly. And then I use personal pictures. Perfect. Didn't mean to go to that. And I played with Weebly's ability to mess around with photos, and I blurred it and changed it up a little bit. The next feature, content feature number 2, is the literary analysis. And so when it comes to the lit analysis, this is probably maybe half a page of text. Once again, I like to talk and I like to write, but I work my way through Nora's features, and I do a character analysis where I'm really kind of picking apart who she is as a person, especially in relationship to the theme of motherhood. And I used a couple hyperlinks, which are these things right here. This takes you to Henrik Ibsen's bio. That actually takes you to a digital copy of the play. I played with a block quote again, and then a couple kind of simplistic media forms I did was I played with a mini title and I moved it off to this side as opposed to right here, and then I 2-columned my discussion just to make it a little bit more interesting, and then right down here I actually played with it's kind of what I would call a 1-sentence paragraph. So content number 3 is where things get a little bit kind of funky. I blended everything together. You don't have to do it that way. You might do like your secondary research and your conclusions about that, your primary research and your conclusions about that, and then you might do your overall conclusions of the entire project, or you might do something like I did, which was a blended technique. So I begin talking about my secondary research right here. I actually hyperlinked, which is my media pull-in. I made this thing right here, which is called a Wordle. It's like a word collage, and I used 4 because my grand conclusion is actually this thing right here. I believe that parenting requires 4 skills, and I got fancy and I used the word tetra because it means 4. And I feel like it probably sounds a little haughty now, but in my mind it sounded cool. A couple other digital essay features is I linked up my annotations that I did when I was researching. They take a few minutes to upload, but if you click these, it will take you to my actual just the articles when I annotated through. And then I have another little paragraph of discussion about my second source. That's my secondary source. And then I use a graphic that I created, which is my parenting tetra. And then I move into my grand conclusions, which is still part of content 3. It's just I felt it was better to separate it organizationally. And then I actually move into my 3 big conclusions. So my first conclusion is that parenting requires love and affection. I talk about what that means, and then I employed a slideshow of my research right here, which is kind of fun. And then my second grand conclusion is that a good parent gives time, fun, and autonomy to their children. I used some more primary research, which is these 2 pictures, and then I actually did incorporate a little bit of evidence from my research articles. And then my third grand conclusion, I basically chunked together the last 2 parts of my chart, which is good parents do stress management, and they also have good modeling of relationships. So all this stuff here is content, and it's long. Yours doesn't have to be this long. But I do think it's using a lot of those digital components that make it a digital essay. And then finally, I do my actual conclusion, which is the closing of the entire project and paper, which all good papers or projects or movies or whatever should have a conclusion. I decided to go back to the literature. You don't have to do it that way. But I wanted to see if Nora is a bad parent. That was kind of like my second focus question. And then what is a good parent was my first inquiry question. So I did 2 conclusion activities. I did this, which is literary connection, and then I answered my focus question, which is more of a narrative, and I block quoted it. I also did a dedication right here, and kind of talked about what is a good parent and made a shout out to somebody I think is a good parent, which is my mom and my grandparents. But what ends up happening is this is 2 conclusion types, which is a little bit of an overkill, but I wanted to show that to you guys. So after doing all of these different features, you guys should try your own ideas. You could outline or brainstorm some ideas in these little white spaces. So introduction, literary analysis and inspiration, research and your conclusions or your findings, and then content 4 is the actual closing of the project itself. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. Please make sure you read through this and see how I progress my ideas. Right now you're kind of looking at more from a visual standpoint, but there's a lot of good stuff there. Finally, I want to answer these questions up here, and you guys could jot down the answers as I talk. So how do I organize my inquiry research into the digital essay? By using these 4 content features that I've just highlighted for you and using the sample. How much text is needed? Is this like a paper or is it a project? I would argue that this is a project. It has essay writing within it. You're going to have to do some type of analysis with the literature. So that might be your text feature. I don't know. I mean, maybe you do an actual video and do more of a verbal analysis. I think there's a lot of options. But I will argue on the rubric, I have to see some elements of essay, but it is more of a project because of those digital components. So I don't really know how much text is needed, but it doesn't have to be a paper, and it shouldn't look like a paper. If you don't have those digital components, that's going to be a problem. What makes it a digital essay? All those digital features. So block quotes, pictures, slideshows, videos, hyperlinks. And how will you be graded and what am I looking for? I'm looking for you to use this resource, and then I am also going to look at how you utilize the rubric, which is right here. So this is the last activity. I'd like you to get a highlighter and highlight with me. I'm sorry because this video is getting long, so bear with me. This is 110 points. It is actually a project-based grade, which means it's going to go into the project category on your guys' grade book. Just keep that in mind. So the first thing is, do you have an inventive title? So I played with alliteration, and my title was Parental Ponderings. The next thing, and these are all content features, these are all things like your discussion. So do you have really good literary discussion? Is it great? Is it thoughtful? And is it like making powerful connections and inspirations from the literature? A lot of kids, you might wonder, how do you move from the 3 to the 4? When you're in a 3, you're doing solid work, you're doing good work, you're doing clear work, and valid work. When you're in the 4 category, you're doing like really thoughtful, great, and awesome things. The next thing that's really heavy, it's 30 points, is the actual inquiry, research, and findings of this project need to be memorable, they need to be thoroughly discussed, and they should really have great content. Like you just have some really good, meaningful discussion about your topic and you fully explain it. Kids who don't fully explain, you might have things that feel limited or simple or basic. And then finally, you do have to have evidence. Now this includes evidence from the literature and also evidence from your research, and you do need to think about your quote integration and showing style. So that's all content. The next part is the craft, which is basically how you put it together. So one of the biggest categories off of here is the use of the digital essay medium or resources. And like I said, those things enhance and support the essay. Those are things like block quote, all that stuff, that multimedia stuff I just went over with you. Next thing is, do you have an inventive and effective intro, body, and conclusion? There really should be kind of a method to how you organize. This would be how you use bold titles, how you use spacers, or how you move the project from one chunk to the next. The next thing is, because it has some essay qualities to it, I am going to look at your diction and syntax. Is that effective and interesting? And then finally, do you have inventive mechanics and do you have any errors? So my last tip for you guys is anything that you want to celebrate, make sure you put it on the digital essay. So for instance, this might seem silly, but these articles with the personal annotations, like that's a big deal. The other thing is maybe you share graphs or charts. Now that I think about it, I wish I would have uploaded the clean copy of this survey thing that I created. But put everything on there that you want me to look at and celebrate. So I hope that answers all your questions. Once again, I'm sorry the video is so long, and good luck, and I will see you guys on Friday for more workshop time.